Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
And we're here this week to talk about episode 690 of Adventures in Odyssey. It's The Green Ring Conspiracy, Part 2.
That we are.
Yeah.
It's exciting, and it's not gonna get less exciting.
Never. We don't have much in the way of context for this episode because we are not doing our normal off-the-top recaps this time. If you need that info, go back and listen to the first one because it doesn't change.
It's true.
But beyond that, we do have cast this episode. So we've got two new characters. Well, I should say, I don't know. So we've done one episode with Buck before, which aired 2 episodes ago, which would be our
Let's call the whole thing off.
Correct. I was trying to think of the third Rydell episode, or the new Rydell episode, and it's Let's Call the Whole Thing Off. So that one, he's in. So we've talked about him before, but to recap, played by Robbie Bruce. And Robbie Bruce hasn't done a whole lot of stuff, but he was the character of Quinn on the TV show Handy Manny that I think constantly about because of its terrible name.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was also a character called Lee on an episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender called Zuko Alone.
That's like the best episode. I know. What?
So
That's Buck?
I just did that for Mr. Andrew because you know how I get excited about Psych and The Young Justice? This boy over here with Last Airbender and Scrubs.
Yeah. Pretty much all Avatar Extended Universe information. If you could throw that my way, I enjoy it, and my YouTube algorithm also does as well.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Robbie Bruce here playing Buck Oliver. And then we also have an actor named David Selby who's playing Jebediah Skint. Just Mr. Skint in this episode, but I guess I'm giving him the full name respect he deserves. He has done a lot over the years. He's not like one of those he's only got 71 IMDb credits only, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
He played the character of Brubaker on Legion, which is a show I watched and enjoy. He voiced Commissioner Gordon in the Dark Knight Returns movies. That were direct to video, but pretty good. He was in an episode of Mad Men playing Horace Cook Sr. He was in The Social Network, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, playing a character named Gage. He's just one of those pops up from here and there,
but also everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. He's and there's a fun little blurb in the new edition of the official guide. This is the 25th anniversary edition.
Aha.
So there's a little bit here from Nathan Hubler kind of talking about the casting of both Robbie Bruce and David Selby. So Robbie Bruce actually grew up listening to Adventures in Odyssey, and kind of had worked his way in that way. David Selby was on a flight with Paul McCusker, who recognized him from his work on a 60s TV show called Dark Shadows.
Okay.
And they, I guess, exchanged info, and years later, McCusker gave him a call, and he is on this show.
Yeah, and he does a great job. I mean, Mr. Skint is a really fun voice, and the fact that he's had so much success on screen definitely translates to audio drama as well.
Yeah, and it's probably it's probably a rarity for Odyssey, but I think it happens from time to time. We've talked about it as it's come up, but this is McCusker while writing, having this person in mind to play it.
Oh, okay.
Which is a fun thing as well of this is a part that was written for David Selby.
Yeah, for his actor, for this character. Yeah,
which I think is just, it's always cool when.
Yeah, well, and it serves to, obviously benefit the overall production as well.
So yeah, that is what we have in the way of context for this episode.
If we're ready to get rolling,
Yeah, absolutely.
This episode starts with Buck and Mr. Skint. They're at where are they?
So, assuming they're at the circus.
Okay.
So Buck is moving around some boxes for Skint when he shows up. I also, before we talk about them, do want to point out, like, the score for these episodes. I had forgotten how specific to these episodes the score is.
Okay. Like, and how it establishes scene, or what?
No, just in like the musical drops. Like John Campbell has themes that he uses throughout the Green Ring that are kind of exclusive to the Green Ring.
Yeah,
like in the same way that like, you know, Novacom gets that like electric guitar thing. Like there are very specific. Right.
Yeah,
there are very specific themes for these episodes, and I just had like kind of forgotten about them. But then like because this episode just starts and we get that music, and I'm like, oh, we're in.
Yeah,
like, this is Green Ring.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and it is astonishing how Novacom-esque it feels in a lot of ways with the, like you said, the motifs within the score and the way that it's written and kind of how the episodes flow into each other. It is astonishing to me how much I'm enjoying it and how much I'm relating this much later arc with like older Odyssey that I have so much affection for.
Yeah, I mean, it is also interesting to think about in the grand scheme of things. Like, it's 10 years after Novacom, which Novacom was like, you know, what, 6 years, started like 5 years after Blackguard wrapped.
Okay.
So there is, like, I guess what is the quote-unquote last saga is Leonard Meltzner stuff.
Yeah.
Which is like the saga that comes in between these two. But there's a lot of distance between this and Novacom. And I feel like you feel that. Like, it is like a reboot of a show. Like this
definitely.
This doesn't, like, it, you can appreciate some of the, like, thematic or, like, tonal similarities while it's still feeling very much like its own thing.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. No, there's no way that I could confuse these episodes with each other. I mean, just even the fact that Wit is voiced by Andrei Stoica as opposed to Paul Hurlier is a big contrast, and the way that the production sounds and everything. And yeah, just the voice actors sound older, like older Eugene voicing. So, but the fact that, okay, so 10 years, it's been 10 years since Green Ring.
Correct.
And Green Ring was 10 years after Novacom.
Right.
Does that mean that whatever we get from the Rydell saga is what they've got cooking up in the lab?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Rydell is the next saga. I think especially because of how Odyssey restructured, timelines got stretched quite a bit, and it's only been 3 years now since Green Ring wrapped up.
Yeah.
Like, fully came to a close. And you also have Ties That Bind in there as being its own saga of sorts.
True.
And now it's like, right, and now Rydell is the next thing.
Yeah. All right, well, let's not think about that anymore and jump into the episode.
I'm not saying this is the last good arc, but...
Until proven otherwise.
But currently, it's the last good arc. If it holds up, and so far it has, but like yeah. I'm open to hating it by the end. I liked Rydell at this point as well.
That is very fair. However, give him... Well... Yeah.
Given my own memory, it seems unlikely.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So yeah, we get introduced to the characters of Buck and Mr. Skint, who we've met Buck before in the context of our show, but not in the context of Odyssey. And
he wasn't in the first episode at all?
No.
Wow, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
This is his introduction, is him moving boxes. And McCusker is like doing an incredible job with the Buck Mr. Skint dynamic.
Yeah.
He
oh
writes
my gosh.
it really well. There's a greasiness to Skint that is apparent, but also a charm to him.
Yes.
And that is really hard to wrestle with, being like, I should be able to see right through this guy. And like, I kind of do, but I also like, I get why it works for Buck.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well,
And, like,
the folksy Southern kind of attitude.
but it's also, it's the, like, his whole like Buck go, you know, they listen to the voicemail on the phone.
Yeah.
And Buck goes, you know, do you want to listen? Like, you just want to listen to this? And he's like, no, there are no secrets between us. Like, you get to listen along.
Buck, my boy.
And right, the my boy thing, it's a move, whatever. But that thing of like, I still to some extent, but especially as a kid, you let me in on something and you've got me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Like,
yeah.
anytime I felt like I was getting extra information than what the general public got, cocaine.
Yeah. Just like
that is
in my veins.
That is exactly what I like. Yeah. What is appealing to me, and Skint nails it here.
Yeah.
And also just he constantly is reminding Buck that, you know, that he's the one in charge, that he's older and wiser and Buck is a kid, but he still treats Buck as capable and independent.
Oh yeah, no. He treats him like kind of I mean, almost like a Batman Robin type thing.
Yeah. There is like, he trusts Buck with responsibility, with being able to carry out tasks, even if he doesn't trust him in the decisions, but he's also transparent about his own decisions.
Yeah, and
he's
explaining like
here is why that wouldn't work.
Disposable
now you
phones
know.
are meant to be disposed of.
Right. And like, yeah, now you have that information. And the kind of responsibility he gives to Buck and the long rope he lets him out on is there an analog to Maury? Like, just in that, like, the whole thing that, like, Wit's whole, like, kids gotta be kids now, and we gotta, like, give them more latitude so that they could, like, when I was a kid, you know, nobody put me in a box, or whatever Wit is trying to say.
God, I mean
there.
Phil, I mean Wit. An extra layer to the complex.
But, like, whatever it is he is trying to do there, like, this almost feels like an example of it that is simultaneously, like, is so much more transparent than what Wit is doing. Even if what they're doing is actively criminal, at least it owns it, where Wit's is like in weird subterfuge.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
I don't know.
Let him go.
I was just,
maybe he hurts people. I'm not responsible for that.
I was just listening to this episode, and obviously we'll get to track this throughout the series, but I was listening to this episode going, is Skint the better father/mentor figure to Buck than Wit is to Maury?
Oh,
100%,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, this man is a villain, and I'm instantly like...
Well, I like Mr. Skint way more than I like Detective Polehouse.
Yeah, Polehouse can throw himself in front of a train. Like, I am... Well, yeah. Oof. And I also realize that's the point of Polehouse, and it is a great... I don't know. We'll see how it tracks throughout the series, but I think it's great on McCusker's part as the writer that, like, Skint works, and like, you understand that he is not a good guy, and yet, like, you feel like you can trust him.
Oh,
and
no, yeah.
Polehouse
You can empathize
is
with
like a, like, person of authority who is, like, doing the right thing but sucks.
Yeah, and you don't want to trust him.
Right. And I think that, like, that dichotomy is not unintentional. Like, I think McCusker is putting that there of being like, look, here is a, like, person doing good things horribly, and here is a person doing bad things well.
Yeah. Well,
and so that's just going to be fun to track as we go out through this.
Yeah, I mean, it could be another layer of this whole idea of, like, counterfeit faith, counterfeit personality.
Correct, which is, like, the underlying theme here.
Yeah, of the entire album.
Yeah, and, like, the episode theme for this one, which I think, especially during, like, while we do Green Ring, it's gonna be, like, the same one, but, like, the album theme is recognizing deception. And it does, like, it is a thing that we need to track across everything.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is an important lens with which to view this saga or this album.
And what Focus and the show is trying to do and say.
Yeah.
So getting back into the opening scene there's obviously you mentioned there's a phone call, and the message is from Dirk Beggs.
Right.
And we get Mr. Skippy, see, lad, messages are never good.
Right. Yeah, so he's well, we get the classic something's gone awry, but I don't know what it is.
Please, if anybody else has that line as burned into their subconscious as we do, please let us know.
Yeah, just tweet at us to be like, yes, I also was listening to Odyssey on Wits End online in 2011, so
through, like,
I know
2010 to 2013.
Just I need your camaraderie here, Chalk Squad. This is why we have the show.
Yes.
And it's
Make
not
me
just
feel
Andrew and
less
I
alone.
talking to each other. So they talk about the plane crash, and Buck's like, well, what does that matter to us? And Skin's like, I think I've met the people on the plane. It's gonna complicate things. Like, he's like, I think this is involved. And then he goes to hand a phone to Buck, because Buck's gonna go into town, put up posters, and kind of be eyes and ears on the ground.
Yeah. See what's
posters
going on.
for Uncle Archie's Carnival. And so while he does that, we have Skin is like, here, take this phone. This was a burner phone I had. Use that to call me. And then Buck's like, oh, there's a message on this phone. And he's like, oh, never a good sign.
Yeah.
Plays it, and it's Dirk Bags.
Dirt bag. I'm hurt.
Bad.
I'm going to Hagler's junkyard.
You gotta come get me.
Or we could all be in trouble. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Oh no.
And so Skin's like, okay, so go to Hagler's junk, like go find that, investigate that. And Buck's like, okay, great. And asks, he's like, where's my backpack? And Skin's like, oh, I used that yesterday. It's the money. It's the one that Emily has.
Yes, obviously.
And I think it is just, I don't know, it goes to further establish their I don't know, I love this interaction where he asks about the bag and Skin's like, why did you like leave something in that? And he's like, no, I guess I'll just buy another one in town. Like, it's just good writing, good character building. I feel like you get a lot out of that little exchange.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And their relationship.
Yeah, their relationship, the kind of lack of boundaries and the but also the
communal nature of criminal activity.
Right, like the fact that Buck isn't at all hung up on the fact that like his backpack was used. He's like, oh yeah, I can just go get another one. Like it doesn't matter to him. And I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on like why that interaction works so well, but I think it's great.
Maybe it's the southern accents.
I don't know. And then we jump to back to the hospital to pick up where we kind of left off with the Dr. Graham, Lily Graham, talking with Whit. And she kind of asks Whit what Monty does, and he's like, he's I don't know exactly. I think he's like a food inspector in Des Moines. Like, he's not quite sure.
What? How does Whit not know what his grandson does for a living?
Yeah, I mean, like, I both get it, and, like...
He's a busy man, I understand it, but I would presume that he would be more involved.
But he's so estranged from that part of the family.
That is fair.
Like, it's not... I mean, we haven't heard from Monty since album 7.
Yeah.
Like, it has been 20 years real lifetime since Monty's been around.
One Andrew.
Right.
Worth of
and
time.
So like, it's not... Yeah, it doesn't... It feels out of character for Whit, just being like, Whit knows everything. He's God.
Yeah.
But it also, I feel like, makes sense. And I do... Like, we don't get to talk about it because of just, like, what we've been covering. But I think the kind of troubles of Whit's family life are a really interesting aspect to him.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Where it's like, it's the one thing that he's, like, not perfect in.
Yeah, oh yeah, well, I mean, his wife passed away, and that's not really talked about all the time, but it is brought up occasionally, and there's a lot of feelings there. And obviously, he's close with his family, but his daughter, they had a very strained relationship, and especially early on in the show, they gave a lot more airtime towards his relationship with his grandkids and kind of how dicey that could be at times.
Yeah, back when they were focused on the family.
Yeah, now it's focused on the god. But yeah, no. So I think that what they're doing here is good.
Yeah, and this scene like has him on the phone talking with Jana. This episode is like 50%, if not more,
on
one-sided telephone calls.
Yeah, it's
like,
absurd.
It is just hearing half of conversations.
Yep.
And there are some glaring ones later.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
so Jana's going to like get the next flight out to Odyssey to come, see Monty.
Yeah. And this is when Dr. Lily Graham brings up the small disc in his arm that was brought up on the X-ray. That's roughly the size of a watch battery. That is indicative that he works for the Secret Service.
Right. Yeah. She got this super classified briefing a couple years ago about this that had like very specific instructions of like, hey, this is secret. Do not tell anyone except for John Avery Whittaker if he is somehow involved, because like you need to fully disclose everything to him. We know we're the federal government, but like we're pals.
Yeah. He doesn't work for us. In some ways, we work for him.
like I get that Whit is the closest available family and that's going to take some medical precedence.
Yeah.
However, Monty is an adult.
Yes, and therefore is in charge of his own medical treatment.
Right. And if he's unconscious, what, like, that whole thing, but like, it's one thing to be like, we are going to like, contact his, nearest available kin regarding his treatment. It is another thing to be like, we are going to disclose that he is a secret agent to his grandfather who he hasn't seen in a long time. Who doesn't even know his job.
Yeah. I mean, now we know why.
Yeah. But yeah, so and that's basically it. She's just like, he works for the Secret Service.
And he's like, what? And then we cut to Nelson and Matthew they're at Hagler's junkyard.
Yeah, in their little like clubhouse or whatever, where Jay hops out and scares Nelson
half to death.
And then they're talking about the, going to see the plane crash.
Yeah.
And Nelson's like, oh yeah, I was there too. And Jay's like, well, I was there first. And Nelson's like, really? What time were you there? And Nelson's like, and Jay's like, 5 minutes before whenever you were.
Yeah. 5 minutes before whatever time you were there.
Yeah, Jay is so fun.
He
I
is.
really like him.
He really is. I think that he is like one of the new characters, like new Odyssey characters, that I think significantly improves on like I think that if he is this generation's like Rodney, essentially.
Right, but he's like a cross between Rodney and Cal.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes him amazing. I love him.
Yeah.
I'm also kind of afraid of him, which I think is what he wants.
Right, yeah, it's great. And so Jay sees the phone and like asks what it is, and Matthew tries to say like, it's none of your business, and Nelson's just like, oh, it's a phone we found.
Yeah,
it's an Appleberry. And then Jay's, we might be taking it to the police, and Jay's like, oh, no, don't do that. They'll just sit on a shelf, and then after 30 days, anybody can take it.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll sit on a shelf for 30 days, or they'll have you fill out a bunch of paperwork, and then it'll sit on a shelf for 30 days, and if nobody claims it, then you can have it.
Yeah.
I know, because I found this wallet without any ID.
And in 2 weeks, it'll be mine.
Yeah, and he's like, it's genuine formaldehyde. Which Nelson goes, Nagahide? What is Nagahide?
I have no idea.
Formaldehyde's fake leather, right?
No. Formaldehyde is the cancer-causing liquid that they use to put, like they used to store dead animals in.
Oh,
when you would like dissect frogs, or if someone's got a brain in a jar.
Wow,
it used to be formaldehyde. It's no longer formaldehyde because it does cause cancer.
Yes. Wow. Sorry, scientists that had that.
But I don't know what Nagahide is.
Nagahide. Maybe that's the actual word.
I'm sure that is the actual word, but I was just like, who is this joke for?
Yeah.
Kids aren't going to know what either of these things are. I only know what one is.
I didn't
Andrew didn't know what either were. Yeah.
But again, that's one of those jokes that stuck with me. I don't know why.
That's hilarious. And then, so then we jump to Skint and Buck in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And, there is one other thing in that last scene, which is Jay suggesting that they do, like, oh, you should try and see if you can get a reward for it. And Matthew saying, oh, that wasn't, part of my plan.
Yeah, just do a good deed and find the owner.
Which I think is... good to establish intentions because of the next scene.
Mm-hmm.
So it's then Buck in the car with Skint, and he's like, hey, why don't we just call back Dirk with this phone, and then if, someone else picks up or whatever, we just toss the phone.
Yeah, which is a great idea.
Yeah, and Skint
recognizes it.
Is like, this is why I keep you around, my boy.
Buck, my boy, is a great idea.
Yeah, I do like that he occasionally switches it up with a Malad.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, he's so fun. But Mr. Skint is great.
But also, it is a little bit
so much.
It is a little bit reminiscent of
Oh,
But also, funny that we are covering back-to-back 2 mystery series involving a knapsack.
Mm-hmm.
They mostly use a backpack, except one time they say knapsack.
Yeah,
and I was
knapsack
just like,
fell out of the plane. Ha-ha! A silent K. Silent no longer. Give them a voice.
So they then go ahead and give him a ring, and the phone rings. Matthew picks it up. Mm-hmm. And Skint's like, who are you? And Matthew's like, who are you? And he's like, I'm a friend.
Yeah, I'm a good friend.
Yeah. And then they go back and forth, and here's the thing. And I realized Skint was caught off guard as well.
Yeah.
But, he needed to pivot, the whole, I'll give you a reward comes across too much as, can I buy a stolen phone off of you?
Yeah, no, yeah.
He doesn't quite hit it well enough, but I think that's okay. I don't think that's, a writing flaw. I think that's, part of the story.
Yeah.
But it is
Mr.
just,
Skint's just kind of bad.
Yeah. And then, so he
He offers them a big reward. He wants
Yep.
to meet them privately.
And Matthew's like, hey, I'm not going to like meet some random person somewhere, you know,
Good call.
whatever. At which point, you know, Maury goes like, oh, but it's just like some like I'll just text you the information on this
Yeah.
phone. And then we'll wire you the money. It's fully anonymous.
There'll be no way of knowing. Anger.
all for a trip that none of us actually care about.
Yeah. Still mad about that.
Very bitter. Yeah. So what actually happens? Skint calls and is like, "Hey, let's meet up. I'll give you money." And Matthew's like, "Hey, I don't trust you, but like I'm always, let's meet up." And Skint's like, "Okay, you choose the place. Like, let's do this." And rather than choosing the obvious wit's end, Matthew says the police station, and Skint hangs up immediately.
Yeah.
Which baffles Matthew. And then we jump back to the truck where Skint tells Buck
Skint.
is also confused and is like, hey, why'd he hang up? And he's like, hey, it was he said the police station.
Yeah. He wanted to go to the police station, and he was like, "This is really bad. This phone has incriminating evidence, and we need to get our hands on it." Buck is kind of in this moment like an audience surrogate, where he doesn't really understand the significance of having this phone being missing. But Mr. Skin explains like this is actually pretty serious, and he drops Buck off at the junkyard with the phone still, right?
Yeah. So Buck's like, okay, well, let's just get rid of this phone. And he's like, well, we need to keep it because that phone might have, if Dirk lost his phone, there's going to be like there could be incriminating evidence on it. So like, let's hang on to this phone. And so, Buck keeps that phone. And there's a line that I think there's a couple lines in this episode that they hit really hard as if to be like, see, listeners, this is the moral.
Yeah.
And the one in this scene is Skint saying, well, I'm suspicious, so why wouldn't everyone be?
Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad that you wrote that down because I did as well. It's a really good line, and listening through it, I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty. Yeah, that's fair. Fair point.
No, I like it. Like, I think it does a good job to establish Skint as a character, but it is underlined in the show as such of like, hey, pay attention to this. This is the point. So I just wanted to hit on it because it's the point.
And that's what we do here. We hit on them.
Yeah. Then we jump to Eugene and Emily, who get just like their little, one scene or whatever, which is looking up. Eugene's been looking up the bill in the databases. He examined it and it's fake. There is a slight clunkiness of dialogue here where I think Eugene's talking about the pen, and he's like, if I draw this across the bill and it's fake, it will leave a mark. But then goes on to explain that he already did that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't work. It just adds a little bit of confusion where you're like, he's doing this and
but
he's
he already
like,
did
you
it
see, if
before?
I like draw this across the line, it will leave a mark. But you can see here that there's no
By
mark.
the mark that I just made, yeah. No.
And so he's going through all this stuff because the bill didn't show up in any databases, so he's convinced it's fake, and he's like going through the steps. He's like, well, the paper's good enough that it doesn't leave a mark, which is what's supposed to happen. However, none of the other stuff, other security measures add up.
Color changing stuff. There's red and blue fibers woven into the bill, whatever.
Right. And I think it's funny here, and I'm just like, I will attribute it to a young Emily. Is that like she doesn't know all this stuff?
No, yeah.
Like this is her finding out, and obviously, this is like stuff that it feels like Emily should have in her back pocket.
Yeah,
because,
she'd
like,
be very
she's
aware of.
Nerdy detective girl, but like we're early on.
She hasn't gotten there yet.
Yeah, and
No,
I just like that's fun.
Yeah, this is the birthplace of
right.
Jones Park.
We're getting an origin story.
Ooh, a prequel.
Yes. That actually came out in the right order. So
Nice.
not a prequel. So yeah, and Eugene's like, all right, I'm gonna like give the I think it's time we call the police again and like explain to them, hey,
Yeah.
all that money we found is counterfeit.
counterfeit.
Like this is even bigger. But then Whit picks up the phone, or Whit the phone rings. Emily goes, maybe it's the police, and then Eugene picks it up and it's Whit.
Yeah. Whit, do I have something to tell you? Or whatever he says. Yeah. And it's so dramatic. Like there's so much happening, and this is again a moment in the show where there's a big swelling score and it builds really well, and it is really epic. For part 2, it feels really grandiose, which is exciting and cool. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't really expecting it to move that quickly with this arc, which is cool.
Yeah, and so what we then jump back to Hagler's, where Buck is giving like the play-by-play to Skint over the phone.
Yeah.
Of just like, hey, the ambulance is here. It's being, loaded up. Because we didn't hit on that, but like that's how the clubhouse scene ends, is with the ambulance showing up and Jay running out.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I knew my uncle was suspicious, which I really like that they call attention to that Jay's not just some idiot who like missed how cagey Wally was acting. Mm-hmm. I like that they give him that credit. Because he is a goofball.
Yeah, he is a goofball. Like, and he could easily be one-dimensional, and they didn't have to put that in there. And it would just be like a normal Jay scene,
right?
But you get that little bit extra of like, oh no, he does care, and he is a person. This is cool. I like this.
Yeah,
makes me like him even more.
I do too. And so Polehouse comes over and confronts Buck on like, hey, why are you on the phone? And Buck's like, oh, I was just Polehouse is specifically like, who were you giving the play-by-play to? And he's like, just a friend. It's not every day that like you see an ambulance. Like,
Buck cranks up the charm here.
Right. This is exactly it. Is you can see like, oh, Buck is so used to doing this kind of stuff and is doing it really well. And you're also like, Polehouse is used to being BS'd, and so he isn't like, he sees through this.
Yeah.
Like just enough,
yeah.
But like the normal person wouldn't, and it just is. It's a great depiction of both of them, where Polehouse is like storing this away for later, where he's like, I can't actually like nab the kid on anything, but like I don't buy his story, and all of that is just in the voice acting.
Yeah,
no, where like Buck cranks up the charm, Polehouse like just like has just enough gravel to where you're like, oh, he's not buying this, but he also doesn't have enough to actually do anything here.
Yeah, and he makes comments about, is this the scene where he says, like, you made the mistake of being born into a bad family?
No, that's Jay, it's not Buck.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that is Jay. That's terrible.
That'll come up. But he does, this is where he calls out Buck for chewing on toothpicks. That'll stunt your growth.
That's not real, right?
No.
I don't think there's anything, any scientific data supporting that.
The whole toothpick thing is just like, hey, it's a fun bit. And like, we can't tell if he's chewing on a toothpick unless they say it in audio. And so like twice it comes up as just kind of like, it's his bad habit.
Ruin your teeth. Yeah. Right. He's edgy Southern boy. With his
but it also is like, it is a thing of like Skint showing that Skint cares when he says like it'll ruin your teeth. And then it's Polehouse
flipped on its head here.
Right. So it's funny. We have these two, polar opposites between Polehouse and Skint, but they're both making the same comment to Buck.
Yeah. No, this Buck is, I mean, I know I talked about Jay being like a character I really like, but Buck I love Buck. I think that what they've done with him as a character has been really cool, and everything that they have going on with him and Connie's younger sister now is also really great.
Jules.
I know it's a little bit, he's getting a little old for Odyssey, but I love that he is still involved and is a presence in the show. So I'm excited for the rest of the series in regards to that.
Yeah, and so the next... Oh, no, sorry. This scene continues because Polehouse gets a call. We get another one of
The
these.
one-sided telephone call.
Like, it's just constant.
Except for this one, you can hear what they're saying.
I know.
And
Like,
it's bad.
Right. It is weird where, like, they put it in there just because I think the implication is that it's radio, not phone, because they're police.
Yeah.
But, like, you hear the background audio, but you don't need it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It doesn't sound like they're giving way more information that is or in addition to what is immediately spouted off by Detective Polehouse.
Right, it's Polehouse parroting stuff back, but then we also hear what he's hearing originally. It is just like a weird choice.
It's like a bag full of cash, a bag full of what? Like that's like what you hear. You know?
Yeah, and so so he's like, the whole Secret Service thing comes up, that there's like, oh yeah, we've got a Secret Service agent, and then that there's a bag full of, but he's like, okay, I'm heading for the hospital, and the person on the phone was like, actually, before you do that, you should probably head over to Wits End. They found a bag full of counterfeit money.
Yeah. Like a lot of it.
Yeah. And this starts the trend, which is the second half of this episode just being characters recapping events to other characters.
Yeah.
Which is kind of annoying.
Yeah.
And we can just kind of speed through it here, because I don't think there's I'll try and hit some bullets, but I don't want to go back through the play-by-play, because everything that we find out here, we essentially already knew.
Yeah.
So then, we jump to the hospital where Monty's been moved out of ICU into a private room, and they put a police guard in there because, he's got to be under guard per protocol until someone can come. Lily Graham called the Secret Service office in Springfield, which is the closest one. Springfield is Illinois.
Canon that Odyssey is in Illinois.
It really does push that pretty hard, and also there's one of the few times that I've been like, oh, the wiki has some interesting in the trivia, somebody did their research and I actually care what it is, and it's so each 50 states has at least one Secret Service office. So if it is in Springfield, then they've got to be in Illinois, basically.
Yeah.
And then the added thing of there's one in Springfield, there's also one in Chicago, so they're closer to Springfield than Chicago, which I think is just fun little whatever. And so then Phil, so they Whit and Graham fill each other in on everything for reasons. It's like Whit has all of this information and needs someone to lay it all out for, and she was the closest person.
Yeah.
So doesn't
make a lot of plot sense.
Right. So he just is like, hey, the bag, they found a bag of money, and Secret Service investigates counterfeiting, so that's probably why he's here.
Information that my doctor definitely needs to know to provide quality care.
and then they
this is when they talk about the one that showed up. Right.
She's like, another person showed up. They were at Hagler's junkyard, and Whit goes, I wonder what he was doing there. And then we cut to Wally not Wally. We cut to Jay saying, so what was he doing there, Uncle Wally?
Yeah.
Or so what was he doing here, Uncle Wally? And it's just a great, hey, this is going to be a continuation of what we just said, but two different characters. It's a classic trope, but it works for me.
Well, and again, the fact that you're going from Whit saying it to a little kid and Jay, it's nice.
And then so Jay asks that, then Polehouse dramatically steps out from the shadows.
Yep.
And is like, Wally, you suck, and Jay's like, did I meet you, and did were you did you meet this guy in jail? And Wally's like, we'll talk about that later. And Jay's like, oh, so you did? And he's like, get out of here, Jay.
Yeah.
And it sucks for Wally so much. He's in such a bad place because he did everything right, and he's trying to do things well, and Polehouse just is the worst.
No, yeah, Polehouse is an animal. He's not, and not in the good way.
Yeah, and Wally's just like, I haven't done anything bad in years, and then fully comes clean to Polehouse.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, here's all the information, and recaps basically all the stuff we knew with like the littlest bit of extra where he throws in that that Dirk was double crossed by someone on the plane, which would be Monty. That the pilot didn't really have any information, that there was gunshots, that they, got out of there.
Something fell out of the plane.
Something fell out, which is the knapsack. He lost his phone, but not out of the plane. Once he was on the ground, which we also already know. But then Wally goes on to say that phone contains like important contact info, and it's going to be like bad if it, isn't.
There's also, they bring up the stiletto, and Polehouse is like, nah, that's like, don't lie to me, like, hey, the guy's not real.
Yeah.
How does Polehouse know who the stiletto is?
Right.
Anybody want to explain that?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
He's the stiletto. Everybody knows the stiletto.
Yeah.
You don't know the stiletto, Andrew? And then
it's a good Jack White song.
And then Polehouse is basically goes on his little like, oh no, because Wally says the great line of like, it would be a lot easier to do, because Polehouse is like, you keep me up to date with this stuff, okay? And he's like, it would be a lot easier to do my duty as a citizen if you weren't so nasty about everything.
Yeah,
which is so diplomatically said, where he's like, he's not picking a fight.
No.
But he is stating his case, which I really appreciate. And then Polehouse is immediately just like, yeah, well, I don't think people change.
Yeah. I became nasty because of people like you.
Yeah. And then he's like, go, say hi to your brother for me. And we find out that his brother is Archie of Archie's Carnival, which is a big reveal.
Oh, that wasn't established in the previous episode?
No.
Oh. Yes, yeah. Say hi to your brother Archie. I'm excited about his carnival, and then Wally kind of fires back like, oh yeah, well, do it yourself and maybe you'll get some free kettle corn.
Right. Then we go to Matthew, who can't get into the phone, but he and Nelson decide to go out into the woods to see if they can find anything else. That's basically that whole scene.
Yeah.
And then, right, you don't have anything else you want to hit from
that?
Okay.
No.
And then we go to a scene of Skint talking to Buck recapping everything to Skint, because he's like, I was like hiding under the windowsill, and there's this weird thing where
there's a lot of weird things to see.
Yeah, there is. But like, so I think the thing that like bugged me from like just like a writing perspective is it like comes in on him saying like, oh yeah, did you get any information? Polehouse told you to scram or whatever. And then he's like, no, I hid under the windowsill and I got all this info. And I'm like, why did Skint know that Polehouse told you to get out of there?
Yeah.
But then not that you hid under the windowsill.
And had all this information.
Like that's just like a weird like discrepancy, and it's like how maybe he's mid recap, but that's not the way it plays.
No,
I don't know. It's just it's bizarre. But it's obviously what we as the audience need. Yeah. So like it makes sense from that perspective. So he hid under the windowsill like a cat, which Skint is weird about.
That's who you are. My cat. Meow.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know. He's making a choice.
It's certainly not a choice.
Yeah. And then so he recaps then for Skint all the info he got, and Skint's like, okay, you go hunt down the phone. He's like, I don't know where to start. And he's like, well, where would kids go over the summer? And
a law-abiding type boy.
Right. And Buck's like, well, school's out, so I think I know just the place. Wits End. Because of course. And then we jump to the security guard busting into the room where Lily and Whit are talking. This is security guard Lou Ross, played by Dave Arnold.
Hey.
And he's just like, you're not going to be happy about this, but the person we were, looking after, your grandson Whit, he's gone.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then Chris is like, oh yeah, I'm baffled. Whoa. Like she does like the thing that I love when Chris does, which is the like, I'm listening to this too and I'm shocked.
Yeah, like where did he go?
And then her like, you know, theme for the episode is like, you know, don't be deceived.
Yeah, a lie is supposed to look as much like the truth as possible.
Yeah. Oh, there was one other thing I forgot to say. Shoot. Which is when Polehouse and Wally Hagler are talking, the way that scene ends is with Polehouse saying, stay close, we're not finished with this, and Wally muttering, not by a long shot, which is just like an Odyssey motif, because we get Blackard says it in Waylaid in the Windy City, where he's like, you know, I'm not finished with you, not by a long shot. But Philip Glossman also says it in Tom for Mayor, where he's like, you haven't seen The Last of Us, not by a long shot. So it's just like, it's a fun runner. Yeah.
It's cool.
It's the I've got a bad feeling about this of Odyssey.
It's definitely. And, you know, I mean, I'm okay with it. It's definitely less original than I've got a bad feeling about this. But I definitely like it, and I think that it's interesting, and it plays to the overall episode very well.
Yeah. They should have called the 3-part finale of this The Long Shot.
Now, there's an idea.
All right.
Fan release of this with altered title names. Do you have anything else you want to say regarding this episode? Part 2 of the Green Ring Conspiracy, Dylan Weaver?
I'm in good shape. I think my feelings about this episode are pretty quickly summed up by, I think the beginning is really good. I love what they establish with Skint and Buck. I think all of that storytelling is done very well. I like the couples, like that we get a couple scenes of just like moving the plot forward with Emily and Eugene, with Whit and Lily, with Matthew and Nelson. And then I get kind of frustrated with how much of it is just like there is, and we talk about it a lot, but there is pulling like all the clues together into like a satisfying like aha moment. And then there is just like recapping the stuff we already know.
Yeah, recapping the recap that we recapped. Like,
right. And we get a little bit too much of that, especially in the back half of this episode. But also, like, when you're listening to it and it's like a 20-minute episode, it's not as frustrating as when you are talking about it for an hour.
No, certainly not at all. It's enjoyable to listen to, and like, you know, because it is relatively complex, and you know they're connecting the dots for a younger audience so that they can understand it. It definitely has its purpose. It just doesn't hold up quite as well as, say, the score or whatever.
Yeah. All right.
That being said, do you have anything to plug this week?
I have nothing to plug. My life is too busy for plugs.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Then with that being said, we will be back next week for episode 681, The Green Ring Conspiracy, Part 3.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Wad Fam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. Follow the podcast at Wad Fam Chalk Pod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. The Green Ring Conspiracy Part 2 was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Sabo, and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.